Hey, welcome to Chicago High School Football Legends, Episode 3. My name is Bernard Muhammad. You know, when you look at the gridiron in Chicago public schools, those were some historical games in the 80s and 90s, and legends were born. There are people who are still talking about those games, even those games were 35. And if you go to the 70s, 40 years ago, and tonight we have another high school football legend on our show tonight. We have Andre Kellum, who's going to come and talk about his days on the gridiron in Chicago. Hey, what's up, Andre? How you doing?
What's good, bro? How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. Happy Juneteenth to everybody. Happy belated Father's Day.
Right, right. Happy Juneteenth and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Yeah, hey, Andre, I want to give a
Yeah.
brief intro of you. I have that you play football at Lemon. Let me bring up your resume right here. Hold on, what we got here? Let's add this on here. Okay, we have Andre Kellen, Lemblon Tech High School. Is that 4 years of varsity? Is that correct?
Yeah, the basically 3.5, because I
Three
came
and a
out
half.
late in the end of the year. Yeah, so 3.5.
Okay, you got moved up your freshman year. So I got you
Yeah.
1984, 85, 1986, and 87. Running back. And you play defense too, right?
Yeah, play linebacker a little bit, but also special teams. I kicked off and punted.
Man, this brother was doing it all. He was a running back, linebacker, kicked off, punt. He was also all section in 1986 and 87. Man, hey, Andre, what was your first love for football? When did you know you love football?
Well, I mean, we grew up in Chicago, so we had the greatest running back of all time, which was Wally P. Walter Payton, man, sweetness, and watching him at a young age, and when he first came to Chicago as a rookie in '75, and saw him return kicks and do pretty much almost everything on the field. And 76, 77, those years, that MVP year, 77. I mean, it was nobody like him that I had ever seen. We saw stories about Gale Sayers. We heard about Jim Brown, but Walter Payton was it, man, for us. And watching that dude play, man, that you wanted to go out and imitate everything he did. So you all talked about this. Those blocks, man, them block teams, man. As soon as the game was over on Sunday, first thing we did, got the ball, went out, started playing against each other. So hey, that's how we cut our teeth and skimped our knees and fell in love with football, man.
Okay. Hey, that is so true. I think about I was in the house and I leaped over a lot of furniture with a football in my hand.
Oh man, hey, man, my mom got some stories, man, because yeah, we always went over the top, man. We tore up some
Right.
carpet, man.
Right. Hey, so what what
Yes,
what
sir.
age you what age you would estimate that you started playing football?
Oh man, one of my first, what I can remember, one of my first gifts was a football set, man. If you remember back in the day, you can get the helmet, shoulder pads, and they give you a little tank uniform, man, and got that, and I'd be running around and have football in my hand, man. I used to get those wraps, man, and wrap my arms up and everything just so I can look like a football player. So I would say as early as I can remember, man, 3, 4, 5 years old. And, just wanted to be out there, that and baseball. Those were my two loves. Baseball first and foremost, and football, man, it just came along.
Okay. So were you playing in neighborhood football or were you playing in uh, park district? Because I want to say
Yeah,
in the 70s and 80s, you really didn't. At least I'm not
yeah,
aware of that. There was not really no Pop Warner leagues, in at least in the
yeah.
black communities at that time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, Palmer Park was the park that I grew up around playing ball in, and they actually did have a team, but I was too big. I was a little
Okay.
bit big for my size, and so and because of that, I weighed out. So you remember if you played park district ball, you had to be under a certain weight to play. for
Right.
safety, because if you're bigger than the other kids, you hurt somebody. So I could never play with them. And so the only way I could play was playing in those neighborhood games, those street games. And so, but the other thing is I had a brother that was 4 years older than me, and I wanted to hang with him too. So the only way I can hold my own and hang with him, I had to ball out, because, if you didn't ball out, you get knocked out, and, I basically had to learn how to tough it out. And actually it helped me get stronger. And so by the time I got to my age group, man, it was like light years ahead. So that's why I didn't struggle so much transitioning, with the guys my age. And actually, it propelled me to be able to play even better.
Okay. So as far as the neighborhood, for those who are not familiar, Chicago, what area is that park in?
Oh,
Like a
Palmer
rough
Park is
address?
yeah, Palmer Park is on 111 King Drive, going back to Indiana to 113th Street on both sides as well. And I played baseball there. I played, we played some football games there, but that was a hike for us. But I grew up on 113th and Norm, out in near Rose and Sheldon Heights area. So Finger High School was like literally 4 blocks from our house. And so
Okay.
our church was across the street. So all the guys, Normal, Parnell, Eggleston, Wallace, Union, all those guys had teams. And we would all get up and meet
Okay.
up and go and play ball. And then sometimes we would play at my grammar school, which was at the time Thomas Brennan, which is now Alex Haley, which was on 114th
Okay.
and Eggleston. And so, back then, we had little patches of grass, but then we had concrete. So we literally used to play tackle football on concrete. And I mean,
Right.
you throw the ball worn in, let the ball know the ball coming, and it was over, man. And, of course, we had Kellum, man. So throw the ball, whoever got it, you better not get hit. So I mean, like I said,
Right.
that's where I cut my teeth, man, playing against big guys, man. A lot of the guys, they played high school football that were older than me. And so they all used to come back, on the block with their equipment and stuff. And as a matter of fact, when my brother played at Harlan, I used to take his stuff and put it on and go and play when he wasn't playing. So, I mean, that was
Okay.
just the way it was back then.
Okay. So hey, I was listening to some of the things you were saying. I noticed you mentioned Parnell and Normal. Ironically, I live. I guess that would be an estimate about maybe 8 to 10 miles,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 15 miles north of you, and I was playing
Mm-hmm.
football on 67 in Parnell.
Yeah, yeah.
And then but a lot of our games end up being on 68th and Normal,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
eventually they built Robeson High School, because
Right,
prior to them being a Robeson High School was Parker,
right.
which was actually on Normal Parkway, which was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
side street over. But anyway, when you
Mm-hmm.
was playing football as a shorty, what position did you play? Would you playing a running back? Because I know you mentioned the game Killer Man. In my neighborhood, we
Yeah.
called it tackle the man with the football. That's what we called
Yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, we called a killer, man, and that's what they tried to do. So, yeah, I was a running back, man.
He was a running back. Okay.
Um, yeah. So, literally, like I said, emulating Walter Payton, man. Stiffed arm a lot of guys, man. They would come up and they would catch that hand, just knock them down, man, and like just strong. And so, try to emulate everything he was doing. And then, also, you start seeing him catching the ball, start seeing him throwing the ball. So, that's what you practiced and went out and did after you got done. And so, developed, of course, playing baseball, developed a pretty good arm. So, was actually able to throw the ball a little bit. So, I played quarterback in the street teams when I needed to, lined up at, tight end, receiver, but the main thing was give me the ball, just run guys over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Andre. So hey, now you about to graduate out 8th grade, and you about to pick a school. It sounds like you said your finger was in your neighborhood, and it sounds
Yeah.
like some of y'all games might have been right across the street from what school that would have been? Mendel. sound like I was playing right across the street from Mendel. Was that the park across
Yeah,
the street from Mendel?
yeah.
Okay.
Mendel
Yeah,
was
I'm trying.
across the street. Yeah, and that's Gwendolyn Brooks. But yeah, man, we used to go to the house parties back in the day, underage
Right,
in
right,
Mendel, and
right.
try to pick up the girls, man, and go up the hill. It was a YMCA up there with a White Castle, man. So that was like the joint back in the day. So yeah, man, walking the hood was, back then, it was different, because everybody looked
Right.
out for each other, even though we had gangs going on and things like that. They knew who to protect and who was a stranger in the hood. So I used to ride my bike from my house down the hill and go and do whatever, go all through the hood, whatever, never have a problem. So yeah, man, go to Mendel. Mendel recruited me in grammar school. I wasn't trying to hear Mendel. Then of course, not long after that, they closed. What finger wasn't an option, because I wasn't going to no neighborhood school either. But I had a teacher, and he was a history teacher named Mr. Jones, and he had a real good relationship with J.W. Smith. And I knew a lot of those guys that, went to Julian and Corliss and Harlan and whatever from the neighborhood. And so, again, these were the guys we all played against. So, of course, Julian was a powerhouse back then. And, they ran a wishbone or whatever. So he was trying to get me, trying to recruit me to J.W. Smith. But I wanted to play baseball. And at the time, Simeon was the team. So I wanted to go to Simeon. And I had a counselor that got in my mom's ear. And she was like, you ain't going neither one of those. You're going to either Lindblom or you going to Whitney Young. And Whitney Young, my sister was going to the Magnet at the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I am not catching no buses or no trains all the way down to Whitney Young. And so that's how I ended up at Lindblom. But
Okay.
that wasn't my
Okay.
first choice. But once I got there that first day freshman orientation, and I looked around and I saw all them girls, man. It was like, hey, I'm glad I'm here.
Hey, I will say Lumberlone had some pretty girls when we were in
Hey,
school. So
man.
hey,
Hey,
I know what you're
I
talking
had
about.
never, I had, growing up where I was, I mean, we had some nice looking girls, but man, every girl was fine. And I ain't never seen them like that. And they were like grown women, man. And it was like, you wait a minute, what year are you? So yeah, man. I thought I was on a college campus or something, man. The girls looking that good. So I like, yeah, I'm about to ball out here.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
that's
hey,
how I
so
end up
what?
at Limbo.
That's how you end up. Okay. So what? This is
Yeah.
what I understand, Andre. You get to Lumberlone, and
Hmm.
early on, Lumberlone coach Turian already know who you are.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of correct? Okay, so and
yeah,
so what?
yeah.
We're gonna get into the football stuff a little more, then we're gonna get into your playing days. But
Okay.
what was that conversation like? I mean, was he recruiting you to play? I mean, because I know he was the varsity
No.
coach. He had became the
Yeah.
varsity coach my senior year
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
the '82 season. So
Yeah.
what was going on that Coach Turian was talking to you? Sound like right after orientation.
Well, yeah. So a couple of my best friends, man, the Burns twins, Daryl and Derek, they actually lived a block away, 2 blocks away from me on Normal. And I mean, we all grew up together, whatever. They were going to Limblom. And when they found out I was going to Limblom, they were like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They were playing football at the time too. So they were like, yeah, man. So I went up there with them, uh, and they introduced me to Torian. And so
Mm.
they hadn't started practice yet, but they're like, yeah, coach, he coming to that. So I thought, okay, fine, good. So I didn't think nothing of it. I went back home. And, I didn't even think about, I don't know anything about tour days or, preseason practice, all that stuff. So I waited until school started to go back up there. So I'm at freshman orientation, Tori Ann walking in the hallway. I guess they had just finished practice for the morning, whatever. And he saw me and he was like, hey, where you been? Took me right from right there. I mean, I got my packet in my hand. I was getting ready to go hang out. Again, I was looking at the ladies or whatever. And he took me right up to the locker room, to the equipment room, gave me equipment, and I had to practice that afternoon. So that was my first introduction to, two-a-days and practice and all that stuff because they were just getting ready to wrap up two-a-days. So I didn't even know, man. I didn't even have cleats and nothing, man. I mean, I just literally just went to practice, man. And we didn't have phones back then, so I couldn't call mom, whatever, say, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be at practice, whatever, man. So when I didn't come back home, she was like, where you been? Whatever. I came home, walked in the door, I had all these shoulder pads and helmets and stuff. And she was like, what the heck? I say, hey, I'm on a football team. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great story. Hey, for those who just tuned in tonight, you're actually watching the third episode of Chicago High School Football Legends. It's a spinoff of the Bears banner while the Bears are actually in the off season. So we added a broadcast called Chicago High School Football Legends. And tonight we're sitting on here with Andre Kellum, who played for Limblom High School, and he also played college ball for Alabama A&M. Hey, Andre, so, I mean, for those who, for us, we I know at Limblom, we kind of called it double sessions. I know a lot of pros in different schools call it 2-a-days, 3-a-days. Yeah. We call it double sessions. So, yeah. So, you played your freshman year, sound like half the season on the Frost-Off team because a lot of the Chicago teams, they combine the freshman and the sophomore team where some of the suburban schools now they have a freshman team, a sophomore team, and sometimes they have an A team, a B team, on both levels, right? So but anyway, when so you play your freshman year, they move you up, and if my memory correct, you're moved into a team that's competing in the state, right? Is that correct?
Well,
your freshman year?
Well, yeah. So my freshman year, when Torian brought me in, like I said, they were already in 2-a-days. They were almost finished with 2-a-days. And so when I came out, I was just kind of like this fill-in guy on, whatever they were running drills or whatever. So I got put in actually as a nose guard, as a nose tackle. And but I was so quick. I was too quick for that position because as soon as the center would hike the ball, I was on quarterback. And at the time, we had an all area quarterback named Johnny Cole. Now his name is Johnny Muhammad. And I mean that guy, man, he can throw it. And then of course, guys, David Bird and OJ and Ples and a lot of those guys, Tony Betts and Reggie Drew and all those guys. So it was a lot of those guys that were on that team. And, they were competing for conference. They were competing for, playoffs, etc. So I played the first part of that season on the Frost-Off, like you mentioned, because we couldn't have a freshman sophomore team because we just didn't have numbers like they did in the suburbs and, in the Catholic schools, etc. So I don't know if you all used to do it, but St. Rita used to practice up at Limblom Park like we did. And so on one of the Frost-Off games we played near the end of the Frost-Off season was actually against St. Rita. And when I was getting ready to get called up for playoffs, St. Rita game, I had just scored a touchdown. And while I was going into the end zone, a lineman from St. Rita fell on my ankle, tore my ankle up. So I literally, right before playoffs, I couldn't play the rest of the season. And so I would have loved to have played with those guys because that was, again, that was unheard of. And that was kind of like where the rumor mill came, like, man, we got a freshman, because that wasn't happening at Limblom. You would never heard of a freshman or a sophomore playing varsity at Limblom. That's just how competitive it was. And so the mere fact that I was even in that conversation, upperclassmen and others were like, man, who is this dude? And so that's how it kind of started from there.
Okay, so we get you through that freshman year, and Limblom has a tradition of some guys that can really tote that rock. I mean, I want to give shots out to EJ Bassetti, who graduated in, I believe, EJ in '79. I always call him the original number 33. I know there was some 33s before him, but I wore number 33. And he was a guy that I looked up to. So I always, when I see EJ, I say, hey, what's up with you, the original number 33? But
Yeah,
anyway,
great brother,
you had guys
great
like
brother.
EJ, great,
Yeah,
good guy, great motivator,
yeah,
businessman.
yes, sir.
Then you had not too long after him, you had Dwight Johnson. Then you had
Hmm.
Sidney, who was Sidney
Right,
was setting records at Limblom. Then
right.
after him, I want to say you had Cal Lavalier and Tony Betts. Then we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you. So now we got
yeah,
some expectations set for you. Now
yeah,
you the starter on the varsity. I mean,
yeah.
how did that season go with y'all following that team that had went to the state? I mean, how did it go that
So,
next season for you?
so yeah, I want to throw another name in there. That was, my big brother, Melvin Branch.
Yeah,
Melvin
Melvin,
was
I
a
forget
tailback.
Melvin.
Yeah, Melvin was a tailback. My sophomore year, and they were seniors. And I mean, hey man, that when you're talking about those type of names, man, all I heard when I first got to Limbo, and I actually, you can see here, I got number 47 on my shirt. Torian made me
Mm-hmm.
wear 47 because of Cal, and
Mm-hmm.
because he was like, and I later learned that he loved big backs, and
Yeah.
man, he, when he put me down at the fullback position, and he had us in the background and in the backfield, and one of our other brothers, Tony Brown. Man, we used to tote that mail, man, and it was nice. I think my first 100-yard game was against Morgan Park at Gately as a sophomore, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like on a cloud nine because I knew a lot of them guys from the hood, and when I got the
Mm-hmm.
chance to play them, man, I played lights out in front of my old family and friends, man. So that's when I knew that I arrive, I could hang, I can roll. And plus we were at Gately, man. That was the hood. So it was like,
Right.
man, coming back to the hood, man. It's like, yeah, y'all see it. Y'all told me y'all got on me about going to Limblom, but Limblom ain't no punk, man. And so but yeah, we made it to city playoffs that year. And and again, man, it was like this, we had to have this, kind of tradition because, what was on the board was that, that 81, 82 team, that
Mm-hmm.
Soldier Field team. And, it was
Right.
like,
Right.
we knew. And you remember this, walking in a Limblom, you got them first Prep Bowl championship trophies sitting there in that
Yep.
trophy case.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
I mean, hey, we got a history at Limblom as an athletic program, but also in public league. So that's a lot of pressure when you walk in and you ain't living up to it. So it's like, hey, we need to get a couple more of them trophies. So when we heard that you all took Robeson to the test, it's like, oh no, we got to build these blocks. And so my freshman class moving forward, we knew, and that's all we had our sights on when we got to our senior.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't know this. I know you have your powerhouses that you start having like in the '70s, like
Yeah,
CVS,
yeah,
Julian, Robeson.
yeah,
Hubbard was a powerhouse for a while in the '90s. And I
yeah,
guess in the 2000s, you start having Morgan Park and what other
yeah.
schools? I'm
Simeon,
trying to
yeah,
think of
yeah,
something.
Simeon,
Simeon
yeah,
always been a
Simeon was a powerhouse.
powerhouse.
Right, right.
You had Phillips. Phillips ended up being it.
Yeah,
But when
Phillips.
you
Yeah,
look through the Chicago League history, early on in Chicago League history, Limblom
it
was a
was Limblom.
powerhouse.
It was
It was
Limblom.
Limblom. Limblom was one
We won the right. We won the first two Prep Bowls, and
of correct.
we can't take that away from that. That's our legacy. And when
Hmm.
I got to Limblom and I started seeing it, that's when I was like, what, hey man, this is something that we can continue to build. And so it's an
Hmm.
expectation that we should always be in the playoffs or be competing for or get into a city championship. So yeah, I mean, that was, it was a lot of other things that were, kind of in the way of that, but because it's, community was changing, we enrollment was changing, but we had some core guys that had the opportunity to do that, and so that's what we were trying to do. My group that was there.
Right, right. So Andre, we, as you plan through that football season, I mean, who was some of the players that you remember in some of the games that were like the thrillers? Because to me, personally, it was not the blowout games. Because my junior year, we blew a lot of people
No,
out. I mean, there was
yeah,
there was not too many games that was close until we got to the playoff. but
Yeah.
it was still overall through my high school career. It was not the blowouts, other than the loss to
Right.
Robeson, that sticks in my mind. It was those close
Hmm.
games, those games
Right.
against the Tilden,
Right. Right.
or like a playoff loss to Simeon that was only by
Hmm.
basically the whole game. They was only up by 2 points most of the game before they
Yeah.
kind of opened it up right in the fourth quarter. I mean,
Right.
what game do you remember where it was just a tough game?
Well, Harper was always tough for us because that was our conference. They were our conference rival. They were, the 63rd Street rival was us, Harper, and then we had Inglewood a little bit further east. But definitely Harper because, you know, my freshman year, I think, was the maybe first year they had beaten us for conference. And so we made it to the playoffs, but didn't win the conference. And that was like, man, it was a lot of bad attitudes, bad about that, because that was like, well, how did they get us? And then my sophomore year, we lost to Harper, and actually we lost to my first 3 years. So my senior year, man, it was like, no.
Mm,
And we ended up playing them on homecoming. And back then, homecoming, we didn't lose. And so the fact that
yeah.
we were both undefeated, man, we were both undefeated. We was at Stag Stadium, and you talking about it was both our homecomings, and it was packed. And man,
Mm,
that was a knockout drag out, and we beat them. And so, I ran for 100, scored. One of our other brothers, Little Joe, scored. And yeah, man, we took it to them, man. And so, even to the point they wanted to fight us afterwards. So it was like, that was that game, man. It was like, hey, we got them, man. We finally got them. And that was our senior year,
yeah.
and it was a strike shortened year. So, that was all we were playing for because of the strike, we couldn't play for state. And for 2 3 years we were trying to get to state but it was a teacher strike, and it was so long, man, that we didn't qualify for state. Now, no school, only have maybe one or two schools qualified. And man, it was hurtful. But when we beat them, it was like, oh man, it's on. So the next thing was we got to go for city. And so
Okay.
man, that game there. I think the other one was we played Kenwood, and
Can we, okay.
I had moved over east from out in Normal, from Normal over east, and I used to run into some of those guys on the bus, and they were talking a lot of trash, man. I mean, a lot of trash. Man, we dropped 52 on them in a playoff game. And bro, I mean, I had 4 touchdowns by third quarter, and we finally caught the dogs off, man. But thanks, bro. But I mean, yeah, we put a hammer on them, man. Even to a point, man, when when they reopened Limbo years later, uh, we had one of the former players at Kenwood became the head coach, and he was like, you number 47 from Limblom, man. You boys, how man, we were hanging on you, man. You were dragging us around, dude. We ain't never seen no back like you before, man. You killed us, man. You killed us. So it was like refreshing. That was a game though. I remember, man, because man, they talked more trash. They were on the news and everything. We weren't getting no press. And we dropped that 52 on, man, and they would not. They were like, man, what happened? So, so yeah, those were the
Right.
two
Hey,
games, man, that really stood out.
that really stood out. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know. There's a comment from Plank, who's one of the hosts of this show. I know, different
yeah,
people,
yeah,
celebrating. So hey,
yeah,
I know they couldn't make it on today. But hey, once you
yeah.
put your connection to, you was telling me a story about
Oh
uh
yeah,
that relates connects you and Plank. Can you tell
yeah.
that story?
So if Plank can see that graphic behind me, he might notice that helmet. So when I first got the Limblom, I told you I got there late, right? So when they gave
Yeah.
out equipment, I had this helmet with this tape on the front, and it had Plank. And I was like, man, these dudes just leave their stuff on there, whatever. So I ended up getting Plank's helmet, and I ended up getting one of the lockers. So the locker room, you had the groups at the time, which was the family, and you had Crunch Bunch. So it wasn't no other lockers available because all the other freshmen and sophomores had all the other lockers and stuff. So I walked in there and sat down at the locker. I didn't know. And I ended up sitting in between the family and a bunch of lockers, man. And everybody looked and it was like, who is this dude crazy, man? You know, who is this freshman coming in, sit down, whatever. But they ain't giving me no flack, man, because I had, I guess, proved myself on the field. But yeah, so Big Brother Plank, man, I had your helmet and I wore it pretty much my entire career.
Oh wow, man, that's amazing. I mean, for those who don't know, they may know Plank from this show, as far as Bears banner, and but they may not know him as a football player. But we're going to
Yeah,
do a podcast with him. I just didn't start with some of the hosts because I know people see us all the time. But Plank
right.
has a story to tell. I mean, Plank was an outstanding football player. His real name is
Yes.
Keith Lanoy, but he was awesome hit him. So we didn't just call him Plank just because he just, it sounded great and he play. I mean, that guy could play. But we're talking about
Yeah.
you tonight, Andre.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I have a couple of things I want to, if you remember, hold on, let me see if I could bring this up. See if you could give me a little narrative on. Let me go to the next slide here. Well, I mean, this one says Limblom keeps away and stops Taft. I mean, what happened there? What do you remember about this particular game with Taft?
Yeah. So actually, this was our first game our junior year, and they had beat us the year before, and we got them for the first game. You know how we would play those home and home games for the preseason, etc. Uh, oh, thanks, Plank. Man, Will Kill is naming that. Yeah, I kill a lot of people with that helmet, bro. Thanks for that. So yeah, so we had that game. We had that game at Stag, and they had beat us the year before. They barely beat us. And so we got them at Stag, man, and it was a tight game. I mean, we were back and forth, and we had just scored, and they drove all the way down and turned the ball over on downs, and we got the ball. So we had almost 96 yards, and of course we had about 8 minutes left. So Torian had the grand idea to say, you know what, he gonna run me the whole run out the game. So he dove me literally the length of the field until the time ran out. So they couldn't get the ball back. So I ran for like 8:56 in that game in the fourth quarter, and they never got the ball back. And that's how we won the game.
Hey, that's called a grinding it out. I mean, you
Yeah,
grind it out.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
And I'm gonna
Andre,
tell you,
how
I'm gonna
how
tell
did
you
you
one other. Let me
uh
tell you one other thing about that. We ended on
mhm.
like the 6 yard line, and I was crying because I thought we lost the game because we didn't score, and they had to show because you see, we had won the game by one play, but man, I was so tired, I didn't even know, man. I thought we had lost the game because I didn't make it to the end zone, man. So everybody was celebrating. I'm crying. I think we lost the game.
Hey, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in tonight and sharing some of your holiday with us on Happy Juneteenth and Happy Father's Day yesterday as we talked to Andre Kellum. Hey, you know what? How did you play running back and play linebacker? I mean, what did you do for your endurance? Because linebacker is not no position where you could get on the defense and hide a little bit. How did you keep your endurance to play both sides of the ball in such an active position as linebacker? I'm assuming you was in the middle. Were you in the middle?
No, I was on the edge. I was on the
You was
corner.
on the edge. Okay.
Yeah, I was on the edge. I was an outside linebacker, and back then, man, we were young, man. We didn't get tired. We matter of fact, I tell you what ended up happening. They started playing us both ways because of numbers or whatever. You know how Torian was. Your best player is gonna play it on the field. So we would run. And at the time, I didn't run the ball as much as Melvin did. So I was more fresh, and so he would flip us. But yeah, man, a lot of our guys played both ways, man, back then. And I flipped and play on the edge and as a linebacker and turn things back in. And all the way through until that we played Simeon in that playoff game, man. Like I said, I knew a lot of those guys, man. So of course they would run power dives on the edge, man, just to make sure they can come my way because kind of pay back because I ain't go there. So, but yeah, man, you just played ball back then. And
Yeah.
back in the day when you played street ball, you played both ways. You throw the ball, running, whatever, and then you turn around, you got to go play defense. So it was just we just had equipment and helmets. That's the only difference.
Okay. Okay. I see
Yeah.
Lori who went to Limblom says, I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can read this. Struggling with
Yeah,
this.
big
I
sis.
so love
Yeah.
this. My big bros and little bros. Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, you threw out some names out there, and I hope to get some of them on the show. I mean, it's not going to be a Salim Bloom focused show, but hey,
Yeah.
I get them as they fall in line.
Yeah.
You mentioned Melvin Branch, who's actually today in his career, he's a Chicago police officer. I know he
Yeah.
played college ball, I believe, at Eureka College. You mentioned David Bird, who actually was over the state Illinois State Police in this area for a long time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and good luck through the process that he's going through now. But anyway, getting back to the football game. Okay, so it sounds like y'all lost to Simeon that year, correct?
Yeah, that
In
was
the playoff.
sophomore year. We lost
Man,
that year. And yeah, actually wasn't close, man. And that's when we really realized that, so this was one of the things that when us not being that athletic school versus a school that was, it was a difference between the weight room. And
yeah.
those guys had a weight room. We had a universal machine. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we did a lot of the things we did with just that one little universal machine is amazing in itself. But a
Yeah.
lot of the guys used to go work out at gyms and stuff because gyms were just coming in. They weren't real big.
Mm-hmm.
They were just starting to come to that space. But yeah, man. Or you went to the Y or something. But we just didn't have that type of program where we had those weight machines and weight stations and plyometrics and all that stuff. And it actually hurt us because when we went up against those bigger schools that actually had those type of programs, then we just didn't have a straight the strength to compete against them. And so eventually we could hang for so long, but then we would of course get worn out. And when you're going against guys that are already stronger than you, and then they're bigger too, eventually something's gonna give. So we just didn't have the weight training and stuff back then.
Okay, so you mentioned, okay, we're talking about the Simeon game. Matter of fact, I have an interview lined up, and I want to say he was on that team. Uh, Carl Williams, senior.
Sound, yes, yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Carl, yeah.
yeah. Actually, he was just selected to the
Mm-hmm.
Illinois High School Hall of
Yeah,
Fame. I want to say back in
yeah.
February. So, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
waiting on you, Carl, to come on this show.
Right,
But
right.
we got Carl set up to come on the show to talk
Yeah,
about his playing days and also to talk about because he ended up coaching back at Simeon. I think he still currently
yeah,
coaches at
yeah,
Simeon. But
yeah.
anyway, there was another article, Andre. I really couldn't see it well, but I want to bring it up to the screen so you could see that article. Hold on, sorry, bro. The
Yeah.
ones to the right of that
Yeah, the
um,
homecoming
look
at
like
yeah, the
that's
homecoming.
going
Yeah,
on.
homecoming that sophomore year. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
that was first game I scored 3 touchdowns, and it just happened to be homecoming. So again, like I said, homecoming we didn't lose at that one. That was like
Hmm.
you can go to school if you lost homecoming. So
Right.
that was one game. That was one game we knew that we were gonna win, and I don't care who we were playing, we were gonna win homecoming. So yeah, sophomore year, we were playing at Eckersall. I don't know how we ended up all the way over east, but yeah, man, we got into Eckersall. It got into Eckersall, man, and I don't know what it was about that field, man, but I ran crazy against them. End up with 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
Yeah, running behind our big guard, man. And Big Rick Seeley, who was featured in there, he was a senior, man, and it was like they couldn't stop it, man. We ran a 43 dive, man, all game almost, and I ended up with
Hmm.
3 touchdowns, and I mean, that game
Okay.
was over quick. Yeah, and it started out raining, but the sun came out, man, when them touchdowns started coming. So, so yeah, man, that was one of my coming out games as a sophomore. So yeah, we
Right.
beat them pretty good. Yeah. And so yeah, like I said, as a sophomore to be doing that type of stuff. Like I said, you just didn't play varsity as a sophomore or a freshman. And so the mere
No,
fact that I
you
was
still didn't. You had to be good.
not only was I
Yeah.
on the team, but I would start in that backfield.
Mhm.
And it was like, hey, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Mm-hmm. So Andre, it sounds like when you ran that ball, like you said, hey, you was running with the influence of Walter Payton, that you
Mhm.
had watched growing up. I mean, did you feel offended that one guy would try to tackle you? I mean, I was not a power back, but I
Yeah.
definitely had the mentality that
Yeah.
a guy out there by himself could not bring me down.
Yeah.
We had 2 or 3 options that was gonna happen. I was either
Yeah.
gonna juke him, I was gonna run him
Mhm.
over, or he
Mhm.
was gonna need some help bringing me down. I mean, what was your
Yeah.
mentality? I mean, because getting 3 touchdowns in one game, well, people don't realize when they look at football now, that's kind of the norm. But because you only got a
Yeah.
halfback back there.
Right.
But now,
Right.
I mean, back then, both guys got the ball, and for one player to
Right.
get 3 touchdowns in one game,
Right.
I mean, that's amazing. I remember Delvin
Right.
Young was on our team, and I
Mhm.
remember he had scored 3 touchdowns, and he painted it on his locker. 22
Yeah.
points in one game.
Yeah, because we forget the 2-point conversions because we didn't usually kick back then, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Right.
no, I was a fullback. That's the one thing that we got to remember, because
Mhm.
today when you see the position, if it's even a position now because they, running these different spreads or whatever. But yeah, I was a fullback, man. And the thing about Torian, like I said, with his liking his big backs, man, he would flip me in the tailback. And so I would run sweeps. And that was unheard of, man. But I mean, running
Mhm.
downhill at my size, man, it was a load. And so you catch that edge, man. You catch them little DBs, man. They ain't have a chance. But yeah, I had a man. If anybody tackled me, mano y mano, either they were going to be in pain or it was just an anomaly. And so
Okay.
very rarely did I have only one person on me. And then the other thing is, watching guys like Earl Campbell and people like that, man,
Mhm.
man, you just to see Earl Campbell run through the line, and they couldn't touch that dude. And then we started getting those old clips of Jim Brown, as Walter Payton was continuing to go up the
Mhm.
charts toward the rushing title. And it was like, wait a minute, these dudes couldn't get tackled. So no,
Right.
ain't
Right.
nobody tackling me. So yeah,
Right.
man. But
Right. Hey,
the
so we
guys
got
who
a
got
few
to see it
comments
the
here.
most was in practice. Say what now?
Right. We got a comment from Tiffany. We got a comment from Tiffany. Andre, hello. What we got
Yeah,
here? Greatness.
that's the boss lady. So yeah, so
Okay,
yeah,
man. That's
she get to
love
hear
there,
these
brother.
stories all the time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Love you,
Right.
baby.
Hey, that's why that's really why I started this podcast
Yeah,
as spinoff, because many of us have these stories, and I wanted
yeah,
us to be able to get these stories on record.
yeah.
Because when you go to the 70s, 80s, 60s, or whatever years, we don't have those records that players
Right,
get now, right? They can actually look
right,
at their stats and things
yeah,
like that. And some of these guys, when they play now, is no congruency in history. So
right.
some of them really believe that they was the first one to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
because there's no congruency in history, so us doing this podcast connects that history and listening to you talk. Matter of fact, we got a comment from what's that? Trisha
yeah.
from
Hey,
Trisha.
Trish. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Hey,
yeah.
what's
My
happening,
other
Trish?
my
But
other
what
fan.
a lot of people forget. Okay, that's great. A lot of people
Yeah,
forget when they
yeah.
start talking about the greatest running backs to play the NFL. You can never leave
Right.
Jim Brown out of that conversation.
Yes.
On some
Yeah,
lists, he's the greatest, and some lists, he's 2 or 3. But guess what? Jim
yeah.
Brown played fullback. Most people
That's
just
it.
kind of think he was a halfback. Jim Brown
That's
he
it.
was a fullback. Y'all played the
Right.
same position.
Yeah, and like I said, man, when you see those tapes, I wasn't I wasn't the fastest guy, but
Mm-hmm.
seeing those guys, Walter Payton wasn't the fastest guy, but he was a guy with the most heart. Jim Brown was a guy with heart, man. And, Earl Campbell was a man of heart. And so that was like that thing, man. And so when I kind of saw them and I was like, oh man, I got the, kind of the best examples to learn how to run the ball, man. It was like, yeah, hey, I'm gonna copy that. And so, it's like Kobe with Jordan, man. When you see the guy who's doing it the greatest, you want to be like him. And so he did everything so that he can be better than him. So yeah. Plank, I was about
Okay.
230 to 240 in high school. When I finished up,
Oh,
I was
that's
about
that's nice
240.
size for high school.
Yeah,
All right, man.
yeah,
That's real nice, Dre.
yeah.
I have a game that I believe this was your senior year. Y'all played
Hmm.
against, what was that, Sin? I want to ask
Well,
you
yeah.
about that
So
game, and then we're gonna get to your.
yeah,
Hold on, you know what? Let me ask you one other thing.
yeah.
You mentioned a couple of stadiums, and it remind me of some stadiums. And let me know which one was your favorite stadium. I remember you had Stag,
Yeah.
you had Rockney,
Hmm.
you had Gately, you had
Yeah.
Eckersall.
Yep.
It might have been a few more here. There. I mean, what was one of your favorite fields to play in? Then you could go on and answer that question about the Sin game.
Well, I will say my worst field was Gately because I didn't win. I didn't win a game. I don't think we won one game there. We lost to Robeson there. We lost to, of course, that playoff game to Simeon, and then we lost to Sin in the semifinals of the city championship semifinals that year, 80s, my senior year. So I didn't really have a good record there. My favorite, actually, I guess my favorite too. I had my most yards at Stag because that was technically our home field. But man, we played a couple of games at Hanson Stadium, and I don't know what it
Oh,
was
Hanson,
about
yeah.
that turf field, man. But I think I averaged 130 on that field. So I loved
Okay.
Hanson because they had a crown, and when I got downhill on that crown, man, it was gone. It was over. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
love, man, playing at that stadium. It was just something about that turf that I always got a grip, and I could just run on it, and I just loved it, man. And it was just nice playing on that field.
Okay. Man, Andre, man, I know I was in college at that time, man, but listening to some of your stories, man, you know what? It probably was like watching Herschel Walker run. I mean, people have what they view of Herschel Walker now, but Herschel Walker
Yeah,
was a beast in the 80s
yeah,
when he was at Georgia.
yeah,
I mean, he had that acceleration, and of course, you had
yeah,
Bo Jackson, who was
yeah,
a big
yeah,
guy as well. But I'm
yeah,
thinking about your size. It reminds me of Herschel Walker that
yeah,
have that kind of speed in the open field and that kind of balance. And as a high
yeah,
school player, to be able to be that athletic at that size, because a lot of times, because you're that size, you kind of
yeah,
default to linemen, and
yeah.
because a lot of times, people just are just not as athletic at that time frame, right? Because we kind
Right,
of growing into our bodies.
right.
And man, that's amazing to see you accomplish so many things. And let's get to that Sin game and what exactly happened in that game. What was the score? How did you
Yeah,
end your high school career? Then we get to what you're doing now and touch a little bit on your college career. We'll come back to some of those
yeah,
specific questions.
yeah. So we actually we shot Morgan Park the week before. So we beat Kenwood, which they said we weren't going to beat. Then we beat Morgan Park. So we surprised them and beat them. And then we got to play Sin. So if we would have beat Sin, we would have played Julian for the city championship on the publicly side. And then we would have got to go to the prep bowl. So again, remember in our mindset, 81, 82, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we trying to get there. So we ended up getting Sin at Gately. So, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna get them this time because now again, I'm back in the hood. And man, we scored first. We ran we had a trick play that we called pass 100, and we would line up as a back. I would line up with the wide receivers in a spread formation, and our quarterback would it was a run pass option, and so basically quarterback the first play we ran it, and we got a few yards, whatever. But the second time I threw it, and one of our other brothers who actually would end up playing as a sophomore to a senior as well, named Marcus Deloney. He was our split end, and he was our leading receiver that year. So I used to chuck the ball. I threw for about 4 or 5 touchdowns to him that year. And we ran that play, man, and we caught him. And he took it to the house, man, and we were like going crazy. But to get the ball first, we had to kick off. And I went to kick off, and I think I sent you the picture of me kicking off. That was actually that game. and Torian was like, kick it deep. And nobody knew this, but I decided to kick the ball dead into the back. So I did a water boy type thing, man. I kicked the ball dead into the back of the middleman, and the ball hit him in the back and bounced back. And when our teammates Darius Parker, man, he recovered the ball. So that's how we got the ball first, because we lost the coin toss. We were going to be on defense, and we got the ball back, man. And we went and scored on the first 2 plays. We scored on that second play, and we didn't do nothing else after that, man. We played. We played a game against Mount Carmel the year before at Gately for an alumni night, and Mount Carmel game planned us to a T, man. Mount Carmel used to have them little small guys on the line, but they were quick and they would shoot the gaps, so you couldn't block them. And we ran gaps, so we had nowhere to run. And so Sin watched that film, and they did the same thing to us. And so it even got to the point where I was like, use me as a decoy, and let the tailback run, because they keyed in on me. They were like, if we stop him, whatever. So, man, after we scored that first time, we didn't score again, man. And that's how we lost that game. We ended up losing 14-6. And man, it was tough, man, because it was like we never really made adjustments to try to offset what they were doing to us. And it was hard, man, because I was like, we could have beat them guys. But they had a good team, man. They had a real good team. They had a solid program. They had a couple of guys who were all area, one of them, I think, led to all state. So, I mean, they had a good squad, man. And it was like, it was just a tough loss. But we were looking forward to Julian, man. We wanted Julian bad. But, they had him. That was the end of our high school career.
Okay, so you were at Julian. You would have. I want to say you would have faced Walter Brandon them at that time.
Yeah.
I think Walter Brandon was still playing running back for them. Okay, so you end your high school career from here. Let me bring this next slide up. Then we're gonna move on to. Hold on, I keep hitting this one. Let's go here. Okay, we looking at you playing college ball at Alabama A&M. Now, I mean, briefly, what was that like, playing college ball at the HBCU?
Oh, well, I mean, my first school after high school, I actually ended up going to Iowa Wesleyan. So I ended up going there, and I played running back there. And we just didn't have a good team, and I didn't like Iowa. I couldn't do it, and I came back home. I sat out a year, and I continued to work out, whatever. And I ended up going to A&M after going to the Circle City Classic back in 90. Well, I want to say it was 90-91. And that just happened to be the time that they played Grambling in the largest attended Circle City Classic ever. And A&M jumped on Grambling quick, man. And I thought they should have won the game.
Okay.
And after I saw that, I was like, I can play there. And because they ran a veer offense. And I was like, dude, I saw where I said, I can run that tail right there, and I can run downhill. And in the way they were running the ball, I was like, I'll be perfect there. So as soon as it was done, I sent my tape down there. I did my application. I sent it to about 4 other schools. but A&M was the first one that responded back. And so I went down there that summer, and I was like, well, I'll get some credits in, whatever, so I'll be able to play right away. But, this is one of the things I'll tell all these young cats. Be careful about all these transfers and all that stuff, because you think your stuff going to transfer, but it doesn't, and you end up not being able to play. So I couldn't play. I had to sit out a year when I first got there, but I was still able to practice. And so by the time that I finally was eligible to play, man, I was chomping at the bits, because during that time that I was, I had walked on and was playing practice and stuff, man, I played like it was my game day. And, of course, the coaches recognized it, whatever. So at the time, man, I was going to be the number one running back, the fullback on that team. And, the head coach got fired. My position coach actually got promoted to interim head coach. And so they, when they brought in a kid from Texas, he was a big guy, about 6'2", ran a 4.3, big dude out of Texas named Fred Lester. His brother Tim played for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a few years, won a Super Bowl championship. So I got moved down to the second spot. And I took a helmet and a knee during our fall game right before season. So I thought I was done, but I rehab, ended up having to play a brace and wear a brace or whatever. And so they moved me to the number 2 spot. And then the defensive coach told me, he needed linebackers, so he moved me on the other side of the ball. And so that year I played both ways my first year at A&M. I played, which was unheard of. I was like the first player to play both ways, in 30 years at A&M. And so I played linebacker, I played fullback, and I played linebacker. And first game of the season, we played the number 1 team in the nation, Jacksonville State at the time. And they went down the field and scored on us. Coach put me in, and they ain't score again. And the rest was history. I never left the field. So I played linebacker, started linebacker after that. Because I could read offenses, because I played offense all my life, I was like being another set of eyes on the field from a coaching perspective. So that's what that allowed me to excel. Plus, I like to hit people. So I was like, I got tired of being hit all the time. So I get to hit people. Oh, yeah, I'm good. So, yeah, man, I love playing linebacker. And, yeah, man, I played against some great teams, man. Back in the time, we weren't in the SWAC, we went to SIAC. They were talking about us be going to the SWAC. And so, but man, we played SWAC teams. We played Alabama State in the Magic City Classic every year. We played Jay Walker when he was at Howard University. They came down to Huntsville. We played them. So the picture you just showed was us playing them at Huntsville. So yeah, man, that dude was everything they said he was, man. That whole team, man, was big, man. And we were at Division II at the time, and they were, of course, 1AA. So, now it's FBS, FCS. So, yeah, man, you could just see the difference in the budget, when we were playing them SWAC teams, man, because they had 10 more suits and that they could suit up, and they had different program, man. And so, yeah, man. But we played some of those teams, man. And once I got on that HBCU campus after coming from, Iowa Wesleyan, you couldn't, man, look, I would never go back to a PWI. And, hey, man, my wife tell me I wear too much A&M stuff now, but I love that university, man, 'cause it changed my life, man. And it gave me an opportunity to do 2 things that that had been taken away from me. So I wasn't able to play baseball in college, and I wasn't able to play, football for about 2 years. And so coming back and being able to do both, because we were able to play baseball as well. And, coming from a club sport to, a letterman sport, we basically had a bunch of guys who were hungry, and we ended up winning a championship my second year in baseball. Man, so, awesome. So I got to do 2 things I love, and it was because I went to A&M. So, and I mean, I was a different guy too, man, mentally. I didn't take school as serious because I just wanted to play ball. But when I got to A&M, then teachers, the professors, etc. It was just a different perspective, and it was like a sense. And that in the early 90s, man, that's when, we had, Different World and Cosby and all that stuff. And,
Right,
it
right.
was about being about something. So, man, it was just the culture, man. And then, we had PE blasting on the block, man. And, fight the power and can't touch this, man. So,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
man, yeah. So it was like, hey, it's nothing like an HBCU. I don't care what school you go to, what big university you go to. If you don't go to HBCU, you ain't went to school. I'm just gonna tell you that
Right,
for all
right,
you all who out there
right.
watching.
Hey, Andre. So, hey, let's wrap up for the night because I'm outside and it's about to get dark on me. So, man, thank you for sharing
Yeah,
some of your stories. So, what are you currently doing now? I know you're an entrepreneur. Can you give us like a brief
yeah,
uh, 20, 30 seconds on that? Then we close out the
yeah,
broadcast. And also, I
yeah,
want to give a shout out to the Crunch Bunch, who I'm a member of, that was at Limblom. And Andre is a member of the Crunch Bunch. But
yeah,
anyway, we addressed that on another broadcast. But
yeah.
what are you currently doing now, Andre?
Yeah, so I've had my own consulting firm for 27 years, AG Kellum and Associates Incorporated, and so I actually am now working on a project down in Woodlawn as a strategic community impact manager, managing a program on 61st and Cottage Grove. So I basically wrote and designed workforce programs for 20 some years and been on some exciting projects, helped a lot of people get work, over 20 some thousand people go to work and get training and that. So that's one part of what I've done. And then in the last few years, my wife and I, we started a barbecue catering business. And so that's my real barbecue. We've been doing that for the last several years. And some of our customers are on the line right now in the chat. So thank y'all for all y'all support. And, we do all things smoke meats and sides. So, if you need a catered event or anything like that, you can hit us up at That's My Rib Barbecue at Comcast.net. So, yeah, so, we keep busy. And things have been great, man. I've been blessed. I tell people all the time. And the thing is that I still go into spaces and I still hear people say, "Man, you were this, yeah, you were that," and that just showed me that I did something right. So when other people talk about you, then it's valid. When you talk about yourself, then that I don't take that. I take it from when other people validate you. So yeah, so that's why I said, man, I appreciate this opportunity that you gave me in this
Hey,
platform, and I just wish that we would, keep and, those records from back in the day. We would have had that kind of a mindset as a school and as a campus, et cetera, because man, we have some history that,
yes.
Limblom is 100 and some over 100 years old. And, coming out of that, watching that community transition and all that, and sitting out there as being on the alumni board. I coached at Limblom a couple of years. It's like it's a legacy, man, that to this day people say we're a cult, right? But it's because
Right.
of our experiences. And so became tight, as a part of that history that we have, and it should be told. And so I appreciate you giving
Okay.
us this platform, Big Brother. I appreciate
Hey,
you.
thank you. Hey, thank you for coming on. I mean, it's great hearing this story from Andre. Great guest. I mean, another Chicago football legend. I mean, not only he was a great football player and a good student while he was in school, he excelled and went to college, achieved on a high level. And this man has been an entrepreneur, providing jobs for individuals, a great husband, a great father. And if you would like to come and be the next person on this show, Chicago High School Football Legends, just email me at bearsbanner1@gmail.com. Peace.